Good morning, folks. Welcome to the post-morning show. We are unaffiliated with Mark Halperin's two-way, but we love him all the same. Today is Tuesday, July 8th, 2025, and looks like we're talking about Mr. Mamdani. Vincent, you were giving us the update in New York. Could you please, if you wouldn't mind, going back through those poll numbers and what you were sharing?
You will probably see it. I'm sarcastic in the chat. I constantly write in the chat. I write, New York City Mayor-elect Mamdani. I write that every day now. New York City, because so many of these people on the two-way are not from. They don't know. All politics is local. They don't know the four boroughs. They don't watch the evening news from New York. There's evening news on 5 channels, okay? And right now, Mondavi's at 40%, Adams is at 15, Cuomo's at 25, and Suiwa's at 20. So this idea that he's definitely going to become the mayor is so. It's just these campaigns don't start till after Labor Day. Okay, that's how it works. July and August it doesn't matter what. And so I just want I just want to remind people that Michael Dukakis, before Labor Day of 1988, was ahead of President George Herbert Walker Bush by 15 or 16 points. Everything changes after Labor Day, okay? And once again, as I pointed out in the chat yesterday, the numbers have come in. Cuomo got 50%, 56% of the black vote. Mondavi got 26% of the black vote. He beat him by 30%, okay? The black vote is the highest percentage of voters of the percentage that they are. I'm not explaining that the right way Aaron could, but like, say, for example, like black African American women, they like vote 70 to 80%, They're like the highest percentage voters in their category, so this. There's a lot of national coverage. I mean, think of the
Okay, hold on, Vincent. I know there's someone else
just
from New
want to
York.
lastly say, think of the insanity of the fact that this guy was on Meet the Press. It's insane that he was on Meet the Press, and it just was insane. So nationally, he's like this big like movement, and it's just. We'll see. I mean, Mark's saying and I wrote it down. Mark said that Mondavi 80%. Okay, Mark, I'll remember that in November. Come on.
Andre, your reflections on what Vincent has shared. You're also in the New York area, correct?
Sorry, that for me. Sorry,
yeah. Sorry, Andre. My bad.
I want to acknowledge that everybody here is not from New York and sick and tired of New York. So you guys don't tell us how to eat our hot dogs, and we won't bother you. But I think just
mustard and ketchup. No mustard.
Mustard and ketchup.
Okay.
And you can take your Chicago.
All right, we can still be friends. We can still be friends, Andre.
But in terms of what Vincent said, there's a lot different nowadays than what it used to be. I'm 100% with Vincent. I've been doing New York City politics for way longer than I've been doing national politics. And there's a season when you do stuff. There's a system. Mamdani is part of the Trump throwing it all up in the air. So I'm actually hearing that he will be doing more like town hall listening things, while the traditional Vincent knows what happens in New York is everybody leaves. Anybody with a certain amount of money leaves the city in the summer. So all the art galleries are full of out of towners. All our elite is out of town. And that's why you don't do things, because you're supposed to do things when the people with money are around. But Mamdani is going to go and visit with those Black women. Mamdani is going to go visit with younger people throughout the summer. Don't know if that's effective. It could be that the way we've always been doing things is the way that's always going to win. But he's going to keep on doing stuff. The other news to add is, as Mark hinted at, there are two camps trying to figure out what's happening. One was, Reverend Al Sharpton, a week after the primary, said Cuomo should drop out and we should all get behind Eric Adams. Yesterday, with some money backers like Katsamatidis, David Patterson, the former governor of New York, had a press conference on the street of New York and said Eric Adams should drop out and we should all consolidate. So there are different camps with money trying to figure out who they should back in this race. But in the end, whether it's smart to campaign in the summer or not, this is going to be the time where they're going to figure, the opposition to Mamdani is going to figure out who the candidate is by Labor Day. And then we'll see the real campaign, like Vincent said, after Labor Day.
Okay. Our other friend in New York, Professor Kenny.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, I agree with Vincent totally, and I agree with Andres totally. I think the key, though, is Cuomo has to drop out, and they have to coalesce around Adams. That's the way I see it. He's the black guy. He can, and he's already started his attacks on Mamdani, so I think he's the guy they got to coalesce around if you're going to defeat Mamdani. If it's the other way around and they try and coalesce around Cuomo, I think he has less of a shot. I think Cuomo, even though he did good with the black vote, I still think he has less of a shot. So I think that after Labor Day, if Cuomo drops out, I think Adams will win. If Cuomo doesn't drop out, I think that Mamdani's going to win.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Professor Kenny. Then how about folks outside of New York? Let's comment and upset our New York friends. Duke, let's see. I'll hit the ask to unmute. Let's see let's try to help out Duke there. If you're on a tablet, the unmute button, trying to think where it could be. The mic. There you go. We're good, Duke.
Okay. All right. For some reason, and it happened on Professor Kenny's show the other day when I tried to get on it won't bring up the toolbar. So that I can unmute. But for some reason, I was going to comment to you, and as soon as I hit comments, the toolbar came up.
Oh, good.
Anyway, yeah, I don't want to see him become mayor of New York, and I live in North Carolina, so it has absolutely zero effect on me. Just on the platform that he's running on, as far as state-controlled things. I saw a TikTok video with Mark Halperin the other day with throwing 100% support behind him, which kind of shocked me. And I commented back to him, he was old enough to remember when Venezuela was a very prosperous country, and it's not anymore. And that's probably what bothers me. Maybe he wins there, and maybe he does some good things in New York City. No way to know that. And then all of a sudden, people want to take it nationwide. I guess that's my biggest concern, because he might be able to do some things in New York City on a small scale. But I really don't believe in state-controlled anything, including Nippon Steel. But we're there. So and I was hoping after this, Andre would speak on the what he knows about the arms shipments to Ukraine. I've read that and heard that Trump's going to release them, but I just don't know what and how much. I put in the comments that I've kind of been on the fence of thinking that the EU should step up and do more. But it's time to get this over with. There's too damn many people dying on both sides, and it's got to stop. And the only way you're going to stop Putin is to beat him. So.
Thank you for that, Duke. Andre?
I mean, the big news was we were having our conversation on the after show, and ML thankfully pointed out that there was some breaking from about Ukraine, and that was the dinner that Bibi Netanyahu was with Donald Trump. And that was when things broke, because within the same hour, we had the comments by President Trump, and then the DOD, their spokesman put out it was probably one of the few things that they're actually putting out nowadays on DOD from their press room, but they put out a press release that the shipments to Ukraine would restart. And the president said, yes, I want to send them stuff to Ukraine. He specifically said defensive arms, which is what they've been getting. These packages to defend from the rocket attacks, and it's more artillery and stuff that's needed to shoot down the drones. This is a change from what happened less than a week ago. This has been, I'm on Ukrainian television every day, some European channels as well. Their main question is, when is it going to restart? When is it going to restart? I disagree strongly with Sean. You don't have to stop deliveries that are on a truck if you want to do a review of what's in your stockpiles. I mean, it's just basic. And same thing with the the Defense Department spokesman, who didn't really have an answer when this was announced. It wasn't even announced. It was just somebody found out about it, journalists in Poland, that this stuff was being stopped. So they had to ask about it at the DOD. And the spokesman, I'm blanking on his name right now, Parnell, said that, well, President Trump, campaigned on a platform of peace. Well, that's unfortunately in contrast to what's happening in Ukraine, because Putin has decided to increase the attacks on Ukraine since Trump became president. So Putin is boxing in President Trump, forcing his hand, whereas Trump has done everything that I believe the MAGA voters wanted, which is meet with them for peace, offer solutions, have a way out of this. Trump has done all of those things, and every single time Putin has disappointed him, tried to embarrass him publicly that, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. That's what Putin substitutes keep saying. Russian television keeps making fun of Trump, that he doesn't know what he's doing in Ukraine. And so the conversation yesterday, if I remember correctly, ML, is we said there's something that's going to happen that's going to be a kind of a punch in the mouth. It's not going to be the MOAPs that we dropped on Fordo, but it's got to be something similar. And the two options on the table right now are Lindsey Graham has that sanctions bill, which I'll just point out that Trump has the power to put all those sanctions on right now. But this would be a way off the cliff that Trump doesn't say he's doing it himself. He said, the Congress made me do it, so I'm going to do that. So that's a way to do it, but that's not the end of all means for Putin. And then the other thing is to not just keep the delivery of weapons flowing, but increase it somehow. And I believe what we're going to hear within this month is how Europe is going to pay for weapon systems for Ukraine, including more Patriots, etc. I'm just going to end with the fact that what I always comment back to Sean, that a lot of the weapon systems that are on those trucks aren't things that the United States uses to protect its homeland. And in fact, we are sending even rarer systems like the THAAD and other ones to Israel and to Qatar right now in response to protecting those air bases. So we're not sending the newest piece of equipment to Ukraine. We are sending things that we are sourcing from around the world. And I think it's totally fair if Europe pays for it. They have the money, and I think that's what the next deal is going to be.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you, Andre. I appreciate that very much. And thanks for the, Raul, thank you for the information you put in the comments.
Thank you.
Our brother from Ohio, Dean.
Yeah, I don't know, Andre, how you stay so calm through all of this. I am, for my own part, I don't understand why they stopped the trucks either. I think that it doesn't make sense, and it shows that the administration is speaking with two minds on the assistance that they want to give to Ukraine. I'm for my own part, I'm putting this in the same category now as the tariffs. I don't understand everything that's happening, but it seems to be ending well. If Trump, I don't understand why Trump doesn't take a stronger stance with Putin. I'm I'm gaining some, I don't know, patience again for my part. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how Zelensky does it, but I am gaining patience by what I've seen so far in Iran, with Israel, with the tariffs. We're racking up the wins, just not as fast as again from my part that I would like to see. So I'm hoping that if he needs other, if Trump needs cover from Congress, which just doesn't even make sense to say it. I'm not sure about that bill that came out. All I heard is there were plenty of holes and it needed to be refined. But again, was that a stalling tactic? I don't know. But I hope this gets taken care of in short fashion. Separately, so glad to have the main show back on, and I'd love to have some. I just love to see how Dan Turrentine is speaking up for himself now, and how he grabs the floor and holds it better, and he's bringing the sass with Sean. I mean, he basically gave him a, yeah, right, just stop. And to see Mark be judge of the chat, those guys need to figure out how to manage and how to accentuate the chat, and use it as a tool on the show. They haven't figured that out yet. And kudos to, I don't know if ML's in here, for giving a shout out to the producers of Two-Way. I thought that was well overdue. And I thought for sure he was going to then start giving notes. By the way, here are all the notes of the stuff that you can fix. And he didn't do that. He just thanked them. And I thought that was great. Good stuff.
Thank you, Dean. ML?
Thanks. Well, the two-way people don't have to do this, so they do. Agree on the chat. They have a long way to go. The problem, though, is the more admin things that you touch are things you own forever. So that's like another hurdle on top of all the other things they have to do. But I just wish that I just really all they need is a block feature or a mute feature in the chat, and I think that would skyrocket the quality as like a basic thing. And I don't know that that's available in Zoom. And even if it was, who's gonna go search that down unless you know about it from like an
Definitely not Mark.
Yeah,
he's got enough on his
right.
hands.
Well, he pays people to do that for him, so he doesn't have to worry about it. But I was
Oh
gonna
my
say,
gosh, funniest part. Sorry, ML. Funniest part was the three old guys trying to tell Zoran the Destroyer, however you pronounce his last name, how to take selfies. Those three guys trying to explain how to do selfies. Too funny. Just too funny.
Yeah, I was gonna say, regarding Ukraine and all my understanding is, and that's been confirmed, it's just like it's more defensive only. It's more missile shield, to kind of stop the all the blood. Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to mention, and I don't think it gets mentioned enough, and I've been very impressed. At first, I wrote it off because it was so far along in the future, and it took a long time to get up to this point. I think I damn near 2 years, 18 months for sure. But when Ukraine stood up their F-16, and I believe that they are MLUs, like which is a midlife update one, and those come from the Scandinavia, like Denmark, Belgium, whatever. I think they got like something like 20 plus of them. I don't know. Nobody really knows, and they're not really going to tell that number either because for obvious reasons. But if they can, the F-16 is a tremendous platform for air superiority and for everything else. It can do all kinds of things. It's a multi-role fighter, and I would like to see them. I would be very curious because a strategy shift, and it's not going to happen today or tomorrow or in 3 months. But if they can start utilizing those things, because I know Andre is exhausted, and he is exhaustively covered like some of the personnel shifts internally that we kind of got into the woods or into the weeds on the other day for them shuffling the chairs around a little bit and getting better people in there, I would presume, for their tactics and whatnot. That's what they need. They can't just have the defensive thing, but I would imagine over the next 6 months to a year, a fundamental reforming and reframing of how they're going to execute the war so that they can get more gains. And I think whoever said, and I'll wrap this up and I'll be quiet, but whoever said something about how Zelensky is just kind of had to be patient, or it could have been, I think it was from this morning show. Somebody said that he was patient and he just was like, just watch and see what Putin does and wait and see what we've done, see what we have to put up with. Every time we go to the table with this guy, or there's a phone call, he does another record-setting bomb the shit out of the civilian population of Ukraine. So whoever said that, kudos to that. But I think I think you're going to see Trump completely change. And I know this is going to be a paradigm shift when he does, because nobody on MAGA side or on the other side can explain why Trump does what he does with Putin, aside from surface level things, because we don't know the deep psychology, or maybe some of us do, but we like to opine on how much we're all experts and doctors and whatever. But anyway, I think that we're going to see that completely change. And I agree with Alan. I know he said it before. It kind of feels like that shift occurring. Now, will MAGA come along? I don't know, but I know that there's enough people that are listening that if Trump does change his mind on things, they'll come along too. But we'll see. We'll see.
Thank you, ML. Shamsul.
Yeah, I'm trending to agree with ML actually on the paradigm shift of Trump on this whole thing with the way Putin is handling the war. But I actually before we pivot to another topic, if you're going to do that, I actually have a stupid question for Andre on Ukraine. If this goes on, and let's say Putin does not back down, there's no overtures for peace or a ceasefire that goes towards a peace. How long can this drag on? I mean, for Russia and for the US and Europe to actually be at would it be a stalemate? How long can this go on? This is a dumb thing, but I mean, I'm coming to a point where I'm wondering whether this is just going to drag on.
I think we had a similar
that's the question for Andre.
We had a similar conversation. I just want to say that we had a similar conversation about Gaza last night, and there was the point of view that people are like, well, we just have to end this. We have to end this. And at the same time, there are hostages still. And if we, there's a question whether we, go in and completely flatten it and the hostages are dead. Do we end it somehow? Same thing for Ukraine. There are 20,000 children that have been identified who have been stolen, forcibly taken from Ukraine into Russia. There are numerous people in occupied territories that are, the open reports about it that are documented at the UN, which is not even what's on the newspaper side, is horrible. So I think everybody, it's not easy to explain what the feeling is if a foreign tank is running down your street. We're never going to feel that in America. We had a little bit of that in the War of 1812, but I feel, Pearl Harbor was a bit of that as well. When somebody is taking your territory, it's vastly different. Like what happened on October 7th when they crossed the border and they attacked Israel on their territory. So I think there's to say that we haven't made on treaties. We know that Trump has opened up the dialogue again. Ukraine has had over 200 times where they've sat across from Russia since 2015. That's just documented. Russia has refused to do anything at those meetings because, as they've told Trump right now, they're not interested in peace. So until Russia is interested in doing something, which means you need to ratchet up pressure, like what we did for Iran. We did that with weapons, but you know, they didn't want to talk after 60 days. We put pressure on them. We need to put pressure on Russia, otherwise they're not going to change their mind.
What more pressure you think can be put on Russia that's not already been put?
They have had successive sanctions and anti-terror regime since 2014. They figured out better ways. 2017, we put other ones. They figured out better ways. 22, when they invaded, a whole new round of sanctions came. At this point, there are dozens of international manufacturing transistors and things in Russian weapons that are being manufactured in Russia. We have not sanctioned individual maritime ship companies that are doing the shadow fleet, how they transfer oil in the international waters. So basically, it's a whack-a-mole. Every time that we put on sanctions, Russia changes things, and so we need to change our sanctions regime to increase it every time. That's more pressure.
Andrij,
Thanks, Andrij.
what happens if you drop the bottom out of the oil prices?
Well, Europe has a proposal. They want to sit with Trump, and they want to do a cap that Russian oil cannot be bought anywhere above a certain price. They want to limit it. That's a sanction that Europe is proposing to Trump that he still hasn't sat down with on them. I think that was in the middle of all the Iranian stuff and trying to figure out, because you know he's been okay with China buying oil from Iran because he doesn't want to increase the price of oil if Iran got cut off altogether. So,
Right.
but there is a proposal out there to have a international cap on Russian oil. If you see it anywhere on the market, it can't be above a certain price.
Sorry, before Josh take, can I just on the Russian oil? I thought the Russian oil is already sanctioned.
It depends
Full
on
stop.
it depends on which country. Not all countries are a part of that. So the shadow fleet is a way of getting Russian oil on ships, international water. They transferred it into another ship. It's not coming directly from Russia. It's coming from a ship. And then those ships go to countries that are ostensibly not supposed to import Russian oil. But there are other countries that are importing Russian oil all the time, including China. But they want to have an agreement among the countries that have sanctioned it that if you're buying Russian oil at a certain price, above a certain price, you should get automatic sanctions on those countries. And there's about 12 or 15 countries specifically that would hit.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Duke, I think you had a comment.
No, I just was asking Andrij about what happens with the oil prices, because I know that everything he finances through his oil sales. So
Actually, I have a tip on that. Our friend Diana from Libya, it turns out she was right. Not only is OPEC being undercut by the $60 rate to like $30, $35, but Russia is also getting a piece of the pie. So Russia is exploiting the situation in Libya. Fancy that. Joshua, how you doing, Joshua?
Doing great. Thanks for asking. Yeah, this is why I've always been a big proponent of becoming energy independent in the United States and a net energy exporter for soft power national security purposes. Wonder, Andrij, and forgive me if you've already gone over this. Yeah, merch swag.
Del Blue. That was the
Del Blue
for the YouTubers out there. It's all about the Del Blue.
Del Blue. Yep. Seminar swag.
Hat tip DM from Ohio.
What is the situation on the ground currently, the tactical situation on the ground? And following up with that, what's the situation look like from your perspective, with what you know or can say about the military strategic viewpoint between Russia and Ukraine right now?
It depends on where your perspective is, where your focus is, because all of Ukraine is technically a target every night. So there's that. And that has increased. That has increased since the beginning of the year. We've had a 50% increase on drone and missile attacks across all of Ukraine, and specifically an increase on civilian deaths, almost 40% more civilian deaths, including the largest number of children killed since 2022, as well as 5 civilian hospitals hit since the beginning of the year. I'm just letting everybody know, if you're talking about a battle plan, that is part of Russia's battle plan to weaken the resolve. If you're talking about the front line, even when Ukraine put in a ceasefire with Russia in 2015, the Minsk Accords, that border changed kilometers every day. So similarly, now when there's a hot war and there isn't a ceasefire and a pullback from the front line, we're also seeing changes of the front line on a daily basis. Towns being captured and recaptured. They're very small, maybe 100 or 200 citizens at most. It's only when it comes up to a bigger town of, say a couple of tens of thousands. Really, no city is in the line of being occupied. But Kharkiv and Sumy last month, which is the closest state to the Russian border that has a capital that's as close to the Russian border. That city, Sumy, was thought to be almost surrounded a month ago, and Ukraine has successfully pushed it back with a combination of drone attacks as well as redeploying their ground forces. So there's no potential flank into Ukraine. There's no potential break right now into Ukraine. But the interesting thing is those comments by China and NATO in the last week, where NATO says if China wants to do something, they would expect Russia to open up another front. And we don't know if that's another front along the border of Ukraine from Belarus, or is that like a cyber attack on one of the NATO countries, etc. But in terms of what's happening in Ukraine, it changes so rapidly that, so it's your perspective. Like if you want to do a month-to-month thing, we're doing better this month than we did last month. If you want to do a year-to-year thing, it depends on what your field of battle is and what you're saying, how well things are doing. In the end, Russia is still not able to break forward where they have. I think in the months of April and May, they were doing their best to push in from the northeast around Kharkiv and Sumy on that northeast corner, and that has been pushed back. So right now, it's still a hot war. Like things are, that front line changes kilometers every day, back and forth.
So there's no momentum one way or another.
No side has momentum. No.
Okay. What is Ukraine looking for right now strategically to gain momentum?
To gain momentum. Well,
what
Ukraine is looking for is defensive weapons to secure the civilian areas, because that's just been increased way too much, and it's a morale killer. It is a drain. Ukraine is almost.
And by defensive weapons, we're talking about missile shields,
the Patriots and stuff. Yeah, the surface to air stuff. Yeah.
What's the strategy to combat the drone swarms, or is there one? Have we even developed one yet?
Ukraine has a better strategy than NATO right now to counteract drones. The closest for people, as an analogy, if people have seen the Batman movies with Christian Bale, where he activates all of his cell phones in the city, that thing?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so like denial of service, essentially.
No. When he puts on this system where every cell phone all of a sudden starts listening to, and he can understand with algorithms. Ukraine has that. Ukraine has that across all the borders and within points within Ukraine, because these things fly too low for traditional radar. People scanning it with their eyes aren't enough. The best way to detect these things are listening stations. So they have some kind of sonic detection, not so much radar, but as well as the audio detection with microphones. And I've seen the maps. This is not something that that Estonia is ready for. They're digging out trenches. Ukraine is doing these virtual lines, kind of like what we want on the border of Mexico, you know, some kind of virtual detection system. And Ukraine has figured out how to do this with drones. So their early detection of drones is much better than it was in 2022. And the way, so first they detect where they're flying in from. They can track them as the sound is tracked and get a detection. And then what happens is you have these mobile, usually it's the Leopards and some other machine gun systems that pop out. And you can see this if you're in Kiev. They pop out from the woods, shoot it down like a mobile Sea Whiz or whatever you say on land. And then they don't just pull back into that same city park cover. They move to another place so they're not detected for next time.
Okay. Any sort of signal suppression technology that they're using? That's why. Well, the Iranian drones are still effectively, it's 12% that can get through and actually hit something, which is remarkable that they're spending so much. But this is why you're seeing so much more from the Russian side and Ukrainian side of the spider webs of the fiber. Fiber, which is the only way to counteract electronic warfare, which has gotten so good from Russian side and Ukrainian side. You know, it'll be interesting what happens with the United States using this technology going further, because this war has demonstrated that if you have good electronic warfare, everything is up for grabs, and you need to have a direct line connecting your drone or whatever. Otherwise, it's going to be cut off. Same thing with radio communication. Okay. What sort of conventional military aid? I know Mike was talking about F-16s. I don't know if we have these for export yet or not, but the F-15EXs.
I think they're looking for something more of an F-16, like the Gripen, also the Gripen from Scandinavia,
France, Saab, Okay, and so is there a real threat of ramping up military engagement, ramping up allied support to Ukraine, and Putin using tactical nukes? Or is that still just sort of a this is why you don't mess with nuclear powers?
I mean, he's had his forces shot down numerous times before. He's been threatening nukes since he came into power. The United States can threaten nukes. Any country with nukes can threaten nukes. You can't. No country that's been invaded needs to, act in fear. If you have a sister, mother, father who's been killed, lost a leg, or raped or something, you're just going to keep on fighting to the end. So there's a perspective on the ground that there's no fate worse than death right now. And for the major powers, they can talk about nuclear, but on the ground, it's a day-to-day warfare thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's no real difference between a use of a tactical nuke or a 7.62 round when it kills your loved one. So no, I get that. I completely understand that. I want to be bullish so bad about Ukraine, and I certainly was in the beginning.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's the best place we've been so far since the beginning of the year. So day by day. And for everybody, it looks like there's in response to President Trump, it looks like Ukraine is possibly going to do some kind of government rotation, changing people in different positions, maybe getting some new ones, but mostly rotating. So maybe they don't like talking to the ambassador in Washington. Maybe they'll change that person out. Maybe Bessent wants to talk to somebody else in Treasury. Maybe they'll swap that person. So Ukraine is doing what Trump is asking for to get the best kind of relationship it can.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Joshua. I put a link, the title Adaptive Post Training. If Andre gets a chance, maybe he can comment on that later if we have time. ML?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of go back and maybe this is speculation on my part. So if you give me a little bit of leeway, if you go back to 2023 and 2024 with Donald Trump, it really looked like he was on the ropes for a long time. He was in court on the lawfare. He was never ending negative press coverage, et cetera, et cetera. And yet through all that adversity, he was able to manage it in such a way and come back. I draw that parallel because you don't want to fuck with Trump and put him in a spot to like where he is, whatever. And I'm just this is all speculative fiction as far as it goes. So just take this with a massive boulder of salt. Take that idea, that mindset, and you can start to see Trump moving against Putin and seeing that this guy is a fucking dickbag and is taking him for a fucking ride. Trump doesn't like that. And the other thing I would say, I would extend that out and you go to, I would really, really encourage people to go check out Azerbaijan and what a tremendous change is occurring right now. You also have other CIS states like that they're not, there's only a few of them that are going to be open to the United States and to China to like, because the back plate of this is that China has got to get some kind of economic leverage from this too. And a lot of these states serve China's purpose perfectly. They do as well for us for other economic things. You have Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, and then lower on the list, like more maybe lukewarm to no. You know, Tajikistan and Belarus obviously are no, but Turkmenistan and Moldova and the other one, Armenia, whatever. I'm missing another one. But anyway, the point is that, okay, yes, Russia, and this is what Daryl would say. Daryl would say that Russia has a vote in this via having troops on the ground and being able to say no. That's true. However, the more intense the conflict that we can make in Ukraine and bolster them. This goes back to the thing that Andre and other folks, pro-Ukrainian folks, have been saying forever. Give them what they need so they pin down the Russians. Never mind territory. We don't give a fuck about territory at this point. I mean, for obvious reasons. Like, I'm not saying that they can't take it back. That's not the goal. The goal is to push them down so hard. In times past, Russia, the way that they would control these other states and below them was by having peacekeepers in Armenia and Azerbaijan. That's gone. They don't have the resources to put them in place to sit on these other states and keep them in their orbit. They are losing them, or they are absolutely at risk. And when you're talking about an open economy and economic means and all this other stuff, and then all these other things, watch out because Putin is leaving a hole. Because just like Trump, the whole world was, or the courts and things were concentrated against Trump. He didn't give a fuck. There's other ways around the court system, like than the courtroom, for example, or the press room or whatever. Trump he did the hard way. he did the circumnavigation around the world to figure out how he can battle things back like that. So anyway, this is a poor loose analogy because I'm trying to articulate it. But the point is that the longer the game goes on, the less likely Russia is going to be in a strong state to do something. So China may say that they can't let them lose. Okay. But China also opens that door for us to fuck with them too if they do, whatever. And they're not going to go, they're only going to go so far. And this is, I have no doubt that this is tied and linked in with China's ambitions in the next 5 to 10 years to keep us pinned down in some kind of way in Europe, and then they'll go out and risk going. But anyway, the point being is there is a way, and we haven't even talked about the oil. And I mean, people touched on that. There are many, many levers that we could do that somebody only unique like Trump could take advantage of and use that would be blind, to a Biden or a typical, GOP or Democrat candidate. So I'm hoping, again, this is all speculative fiction, but there's more than enough ground to run with, and options out there if you start thinking about it and putting it down. Anyway, I find it very fascinating, and I had no idea what was going on. Not to mention the fact that a lot of these countries are Islamic or Islamic, toward, and guess who also is? Turkey. You have this paradigm change in Iran that's pissed everybody off, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't take much. They don't need to all be best friends. That's not the goal. They don't need to do that. They just need to have enough economic interest to say, listen, if you come out and step 2 feet against Russia, we'll make it worth your while. And by the way, there's nothing that they can do to you, you know. And if they do something, it'll set off a conflagration in that area against Russia that will exponentially multiply their problems to where they have to answer for it, and then they have to take resources off the battle. That would be the working theory anyway. So I don't know. I'm just a nobody, so who knows? I hope and pray that that's what happens. But anyway, I just wanted to give everybody a big reminder of like never underestimate Trump. That's why I voted for him. This is like one of the things like why I'm so proud to have voted for him. Anyway.
Thank you, ML. Professor?
Yeah, Mike, that was great. I really agree with you on a lot of that. So the break-even price for Russian oil for Russia is $50 a barrel. That's just break even, right? At break even, they can't survive. So, you know, when they're getting $70 a barrel, that's what keeps their economy going. So what kills me is, you know, the NATO or the EU is, oh, you know, they want us to get involved in this stuff, and they talk a big game about, you know, helping Ukraine out, but yet they're still buying oil from Russia, and which is a disgrace. So that's where I think Trump can come in and start really twisting arms with these guys and say, you know what, don't buy your oil from these guys, and, you know, get the Saudis involved, drop the oil prices, really, you know, strangle the economy, which is already starting to fail in Russia, you know, after, what is it, 3 years, how many years it's been now since they invaded Ukraine. So the key, you know, and I say this all the time, I'm a broken record. It's all about oil, but you have to arm Ukraine. And here's a key thing to think about. By us doing what we did in Iran, that kind of gives us a foothold militarily in that region. You know what I'm saying? Like in a roundabout way. In a roundabout way. Yeah, I know about the EU cap. They talk a good game. Let's see them do it, right? And it's just like the same thing with India saying, we're going to come to, you know, they come to America to kiss Trump's ass and they say, we're going to buy our oil from America, and then they don't do it, you know. So Trump needs to hold these people to the fire. But strategically in a military way, not that we want to put boots on the ground, or not that we want to even, you know, we want to be able to supply Ukraine. We don't want to take it off. But by doing what we did in Iran, it kind of puts us in the middle there in a way that allows us to somehow get involved in an outside way, because we can always use the excuse of the Iran relationship with Russia and stuff. And by the way, China doesn't give a shit about any of this, because they're like, let's let all of these fuckers kill themselves, and then we'll just stay on top. You know what I mean? And like I said, with China, they'll buy their oil from anyone who's going to be 2 cents cheaper than Russia or wherever they're getting their oil from. They don't care. So, I think Trump, if he's smart, if he can get other countries to not buy oil from Russia, get the oil prices down, and arm Ukraine at the same time, I think that's the winning strategy.
Thank you, Professor. Dean?
Yeah, I'm loving the conversation today about this. If I take the Wayback Machine, I'm a convert to additional involvement by way of just economics, meaning I didn't want to get involved, but if it is less expensive to assist Ukraine and hold the line, I don't know if that was something that Andrij said at one point, or I picked that up somewhere else. I'm going to give Andrij credit for it. But one thing that I'm not seeing enough on is Ukraine on the two-way platform. And as I play it out in my head, I think Mark Halperin, the host, or the editor, whatever his title is, chief guy over there, would say, we talk about it every other day. As long as there's news about it, we talk about it. And but Mark's line is always about, I find he's looking for interesting takes. So this is just an open question to everybody, maybe more towards Andrij. First off, how on earth remember when Andre first started coming to these and we said, what the hell is he doing here? They're just running a show, just trying to bring, folks in. And now he's a part of this community. And I really see him as, he needs to be up at the, talking to you like you're in third person here. You're not around, Andre, but he should be on at least a two-way after dark once a week, just doing a recap or something like that. I'm not sure why the organization, the two-way organization, is not taking advantage of the relationship that's there. And my open question to Andre and others is, what would be a respectful way to up the profile of this on the two-way platform? What can we say? What can we do? Those that are willing to, what would be the most respectful way to do that? I'm not seeing enough. How do we get a little bit more Ukraine in two-way time?
So I'll break in now. I email Mark, and I've said to Mark, like last year, he had some things called diners, where he had like a long form, frontline, whole hour on a subject. And I've said to him numerous times, why don't you do a long form Ukraine with Andre? I said, and I'm not asking to be on. I'm just telling you, this guy is the most knowledgeable person I've met in America. And and then Mark sends me back an email and says, yeah, I would consider it. So we have pitched that idea to him. So
I think it's all about Trump. It's what Trump's talking about. If Trump's not talking about Ukraine or whatever, then it's not on the radar. That's the problem.
Joshua?
Yeah, thanks. Andre is the second most knowledgeable person I know in America. That was just a joke. Yeah,
Wait, who's number one?
Look,
Are you number one, Joshua, or who's number one?
you know what? I couldn't say that I'm number one because I'm always learning new things about myself.
So humble, so humble.
So perhaps I don't quite know myself as well as I should.
I'm sorry. All you guys are vying for second place. I don't know if I've told you this before, but I am kind of a big deal. Just saying.
Dean from Ohio,
bound books.
A real big deal.
anyone that's talking about humility, you're never going to be elected in any office, local, state, or federal. Humility is not a common thread amongst elected politicians.
Well, I humbly admit to you that I am the best. Go ahead, Joshua.
Well, let me get my 2 cents in.
I was pretty clear that from Dean that he was saying that Alan was the best voice. Dean was saying that Alan knows everything about sports.
Alan, my mortal enemy. Sorry, Joshua,
Listen,
we're taking your. There goes PK. Go ahead.
The two-way was on vacation for a week, and we came back to the morning meeting. And who was the first guy Mark called on? Enough said.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Okay, Stan
there you
Lee.
go.
Enough said. Like it. Yep. I like it.
There you go. Look, hey, best thing to do, and I don't know if I think maybe Mike said it. No, yeah, Kenny said it. China. I don't think China is, knock on wood. I don't think China is a real military threat. I don't think they want to be a military threat. I think they sort of want to. I certainly think that they want to have a competitive, conventional military, but I don't think they're a military threat. And why would they be a military threat when they're doing so well, through economic means? The Belt and Road initiative, their engagement with Africa has been very beneficial to China. Russia is sort of a one-trick pony, maybe a two-trick pony, right? They've got arms exports and fuel. So the best thing for us to do, us being the United States, again, like I said in the beginning, cut out their oil from them. Let's do what we did in the first Trump administration, become a net exporter of fuel, and really stick it to Russia's pocketbooks. And then again, just go in, bring in the F-15EXs with that amazing conventional payload that they can carry and that amazing range, and let's just beat the shit out of Russian conventional arms and say, now what, bitch?
All right, a little NFSW there. Let's see. I was going to just check on.
Raul, I just want to say that I gotta drop off for at some point. I got to do an interview. So I really thank everybody for asking me all these questions. Let me put a shine on Ukraine. I try not to force it. So if you guys are interested, I'm really glad. And I tried to share links. Josh, in response to why China is exactly because of what Putin did and what the Houthis did and other ones, which is they're testing the waters. They're trying to see just exactly how much the West or the United States are they ready? And I think China is learning from what Russia did that they might not be ready for a surprise attack. It would be a long slog to try to reclaim territory if they grab the part of Taiwan. Which is why I was a big fan of Fordo. I was a big fan of putting the hammer down to demonstrate if you mess up, this is what happens. This is something that the United States hasn't been doing enough of. I mean, I don't think it worked with the Houthis. I don't think what we launched on Yemen was effective. There maybe needs to be a different strategy. It can't be just an airdrop. Sometimes there needs to be another kind of operation. But what China has been seeing is that you can get away with stuff and the rest of the world is very slow. Democracies are very slow to respond.
Yeah.
Wesley had an interesting comment about the oil refining capacity. Sorry, just to pivot here. Well, not really, but we're talking about energy independence. I think, Wesley, that's a relevant point. If you wouldn't mind sharing.
No, I had a conversation with my supervisor recently, and we were talking about this, and America's ability to, our production capability is limited because there's a mismatch between the type of oil that we're drilling and our ability to process and refine it. So America uses, I think it was like 13.5 million barrels of gasoline per day in our country, but we only have the ability to process like 65% of that. So we import 35% of the oil that we need for gasoline, and we are not a net exporter of petroleum fuel because we haven't updated our refineries. I mean, some of the refineries we use were built in the 60s and 70s, right? And so we don't have great refining capability. And because there's all kinds of red tape with government and permits to build refineries, and there's so much of a push toward green energy, it's difficult to build that infrastructure. It would cost billions and take decades, right? But to get to where you want to be, Josh, to where we dominate the oil industry and the energy industry, we have to build our refining capability. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Wesley. And coincidentally, we have someone that knows a little bit about oil and gas, our friend from Kuala Lumpur, Shamsul.
No, he's right. Wesley is right. Absolutely right. I think the whole green energy regulations and all that has stunted the growth of refining in the States. Actually, I was just gonna latch on what Josh was talking about China just now. Just a quick one. I think I'm not sure how many people agree with me, but from this vantage point, I see China as they exactly what Andre was saying. They're just looking and waiting for when they are ready, and they may not be belligerent, but Taiwan, as long as I think Xi Jinping has been saying about it for quite some time, that they want that as far as he's concerned, he wants to retake Taiwan. So that's one issue. The other thing that people may not realize is that the borders, the maritime borders that China has drawn actually goes right into the territorial waters of the Philippines, Malaysia, and I think even Thailand. So the only thing stopping them is actually the US fleet. So I think it's very unwise for the United States to think that or to look at China as being purely a commercial or an economic problem. It's gonna be a problem when they are ready. That's how I see it evolving.
Thank you for that,
Okay.
Shamsul. And we're going to close the live here. I encourage folks to hang out with us for about 15 or 20 minutes. And for the YouTube viewers, the younger audience, right, the difference is that, you know, when they talk about US versus China, US, we have a whole global situation. China, like Shamsul pointed out, right, it's the region that China has to manage. So it's a much different footprint, which is why it makes it very interesting. All right. Now, folks, please hang out with us as we wrap up.
Sorry if we cut anyone off, but that's a wrap. Remember, you can catch us live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. It's your chance to join the conversation and have your voice heard. Just check the link in the description or visit americastalk.show. Together, through the free exchange of ideas, we can truly make America great again. Don't miss out. Tune in and be part of the dialogue.